Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I'll be teaching you guys how I made this cute little black dress. If this is something you're interested in, kindly watch this video till the end. If you're a new or returning subscriber, thank you so much for joining, and let's get right into this video. So first off, I'm going to start by creating my front and back dress block. Starting with my neckline, I'll be using a 3 by 3 inches neckline, and next I'm just going to put down my chest line, my bust line, my under bust line, my waistline, and also my hip line. I also got my dress length, which is 35.5 inches. I'm going to repeat these measurements on the other side and connect all my points. Now on my shoulder, I have a shoulder of 16 inches. I'm going to divide that by 2 and mark down 8 inches on the shoulder line. And I'm also going to come down by 1 inch and then repeat my shoulder measurement on my chest line and connect all my points. So the next thing I'm going to do is mark my nipple to nipple measurement on my bust line and extend it all the way to my hemline, and I'm going to connect all these points with a straight line. Next, I'm going to get my dots. Now, starting from the under bust line, I'm going to take ½ inch on the center front and then 1½ inches on the side front. And with my curved ruler, I'm going to connect those points. I am also going to do the same thing on the waistline, and then I'm going to connect from that point to the under bust line with a straight line. From the waistline, I'm going to come down by 6 inches and I'm going to connect my dot. Next, I'm going to take my body's circumference. I'm going to take my round bust divided by 4 and I'm going to put them on my bust line and my chest line. And on the waistline, I'm going to divide my round waist by 4 and I'm also going to replace the dart intake of 2 inches on my under bust line and on my waistline. On my hip line, I'm going to take my round hip measurement divided by 4 and I'm going to extend that to the hemline and connect all my points. Next, I'm going to take my bust dart, which is 1½ inches, and I'm going to extend it into my dart leg. Now, your bust dart is basically the difference between your front half length and your back half length. In my case, I have 1.5 inches. Next, I'm going to work on my armhole. I'm going to divide my armhole into 2 and then I'm going to come out by 0.75 inches and I'm going to connect that point with my armhole curve. Next, I'm going to get my neckline. I'll be using a square neckline for this dress. So on the shoulder line, I went in by 2 inches, leaving 3 inches for the shoulder. And then I divided my shoulder line into 2, and then I connected it to my bust line. Next, I went in from my chest line by 1/2 inch and I created break lines on that point. This is optional depending on how you want your chest to be exposed. I want mine to stop directly at 7.5 inches, which is 1/2 inch above my chest line. Next, I'm going to tighten my chest line using 0.75 inches on both sides, and I'm going to connect these points with a curve. Next, I'm going to draw a line from the 3 inches on the shoulder to the chest line to create my square neckline. And once that's done, I'll cut out my front piece. If you're still watching to this point, thank you so much. Do not forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. It really helps this channel grow. Moving on to my back block, I'm going to start with my neckline. So I'll be using a 1.5 inches depth and a 3 inches width neckline. And after that, I'm going to put down my chest line and my waistline only. And I'm going to take my hip line as well and then get the full length of the dress. So I'm also going to repeat these measurements on the other side, and I'm going to take my shoulder measurements and also my armhole. For the shoulder, I just divided my shoulder into 2, and then I came down by 1 inch from that shoulder point to create my shoulder slope. And after that, I put my shoulder measurement on my chest line and I connected all my points. Next, I took my bust circumference divided by 4. I put that down, and I also did the same thing for my waist. So I took my round waist measurement divided by 4, and I also took my round hip measurement divided by 4. And I extended that same measurement to the hemline. Next, I took my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2, which is 4 inches. I put that down on my chest line and my waistline. And from my waistline, I came down by 6 inches as well, and I connected those points with a straight line. Next, I came down from my chest line by 1 inch, and I took my darts on my waistline using 0.75 each on both sides. On the center back of my waistline, I took out 0.75 inches for my zipper tightening. Now, after doing all of this, I replaced my dart intake and the zipper tightening intake as well, and I connected all my points. Next, I got the midpoint of my armhole and I came in by 0.5 inch and I connected with my armhole curve. I'm also going to connect my neckline and I'm going to cut out my back piece. Next, I'm going to adjust my neckline. Remember, we have about 3 inches on the shoulder. I'm going to put that down and reconnect my new neckline. Next, I'm going to divide the bodice into 3 parts. You can also divide yours into 2 if you want a less full look. But I'm dividing mine into 3 because I want it to have more volume. First, I'm going to extend the dart leg all the way to the hemline. On the shoulder line, I'll mark the midpoint and connect it to the dart line on the chest area. Then on the waistline, I'll also divide it into 2 equal parts. I'll do the same thing on the hip line as well. And after doing that, I'll connect it with a straight line. So moving on to my front block, as you can see, it is divided into 2, but I'm going to make sure it is divided into 3 parts as well. So after doing that, I'm going to label my pieces front 1, front 2, and front 3. This is very important so you don't mismatch your pieces. Next, I'm going to transfer my pattern paper into my fabric. So for this dress, this is the fabric I'll be working with. This is a mikado fabric. I have it in black and I have it in 2 yards as well. So I'm going to transfer my pattern pieces into my fabric. So this is my front piece, the F1, which stands for front one. Now, if you notice, you realize that I didn't cut it on fold. What I did was on the hemline, I added about 2.5 inches on both sides and I connected it to the waistline with a triangle shape. This gives the bodice a fuller look. After that, I added 1/2 inch seam allowance on all sides, including the hemline. I did this for both my front and back pieces, as you can see. I also did the same thing for my lining pieces as well. And on the center back, I added my zipper allowance, which is 1 inch. Every other part has a 1/2 inch seam allowance except the zipper, which I use 1 inch for that. So I'm going to start with my back piece, okay? I'm going to stitch all my seams with 1/2 inch, but before I do that, I'm going to insert loops on the original dart area. Just watch carefully how I do this. From the waistline, I came up by 4 inches. I'll be using 4 inches for my loop, and I'm going to cut out 4 loops as well for this, and it's going to be 2 inches long. I'm going to use 4 inches on one side and 4 inches on the other side. So after cutting the loops of 2 inches each, I'm going to carefully insert it into that dart area. I'm going to pin it down and I'm going to stitch with 1/2 inch. So this is what my back piece is looking like. I've already joined all my seams together and I made a basting stitch at the center back just so I can show you what the loop is looking like. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is to fold my fabric into 2 and I'm going to shape in the sides. I didn't get to do that on the pattern paper, so I'm going to go up on the side seams by 1.5 inches and I'm going to connect that to the dart. So on my front piece, I've already gone ahead to stitch all my pieces together as well. So I'm just going to join the front piece and the back piece right side facing, and I'm going to just stitch the side seams with 1/2 inch. I'm also going to do the same thing for my lining pieces. After joining all my pieces together, I'm going to go over to my iron to press open the seams. And after pressing open my seams, I'm going to stitch the hemline with 1/2 inch seam allowance. This is what it looks like. I've already stitched the bottom with 1/2 inch seam allowance. Next, I'll be working on the neckline and the armhole. So I'm going to stitch that close with 1/2 inch seam allowance. And I'll be doing this for both front and back neckline. I'm also going to stitch the center back area closed as well. But I'll leave about 7 inches open around the center back area. And that 7 inches space will be used for the turning. So I'm going to use that space to turn the fabric to the right side after stitching everything down. After stitching, do not forget to notch your seams, okay, so that it can relax properly. So I'm just going to turn my fabric over to the right side. Next, I'm going to join my shoulders. Now pay close attention to how I join the shoulders. So I'm just going to put one side of the shoulder into the other side carefully, and then from the opening where I have there on the center back, I'm going to bring it out and I'm going to stitch it. Just pay close attention to what I'm doing. So I'm done stitching the shoulders and I'm just opening it up to show you what it looks like. So you can see how neat the shoulder area looks. This is honestly the easiest method to close up your shoulders, especially when you're making an armless dress. Now, anytime your dress is armless, this technique gives you a very clean and professional finish. The next thing I'm going to do is to just close up the 7 inches opening we have on the center back. I'm just going to run a top stitch on that part and close it up. The last thing I'm going to do for this dress would be to fix my zipper. And that's a wrap for today's tutorial. If you enjoyed it or you learned something new, do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.